Ian Watson saying it's just another game on Saturday. I think Richard Agar, said simply, could just say things like that. Oh, it's just another game. I know. Yeah, they have to wear a suit instead of a tracksuit, and they have to line up, and there's the national anthem. Blah 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 blah. Just another game. Before finals, as a player, and obviously you've had a few in the last couple of years. Is it always just another game?
I think that. I mean, that's been said to me so many times, and it is just another game because, in essence, apart from the team you're playing, so Leeds Salford, when you do that bit of analysis about the teams, your game plan is essentially the same. You run the same plays, but you might run them at different times. You might adjust them to certain plays, but generally you've got a playbook, and that playbook doesn't really change. You might just choose to switch some out for others depending on how the opposition operate. But yeah, there's a lot of build-up, and I think this time's going to be very different because you have got the build-up, and you are going to Wembley, and it is a final, and of course you want to win, but is it just another game because you're going to another empty stadium that's just a little bit bigger? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm gutted for them in the sense that there's some lads in that Leeds team particularly that have never been to a final, and I know, like, I've been to finals, but playing in a final and even having 4,000 people at the end of a game, how much better that was than the year previous playing in Heworth, where it was down one little side. It does make a huge difference. But yeah, the way you prep for it is the same, apart from you might have your food a little bit of a different time, the way that you manage yourself. Everyone's got their game day routines and everything like that. So you have to think of it as another game in the sense that if you get too overstimulated, anxious or whatever, you're going to throw your game out as an individual and not just as a team. So it is another game with a little bit more on offer at stake. But yeah, you do try to keep it.
I reckon that there's the difference between the build-up and the pre-game, and obviously the post-game if you've won all the celebrations and laps of honour and all that kind of thing, and the actual in-game. Because players that you speak to and you've asked about this are saying that once that ball is kicked off, if you're doing your job properly, all you're focused on is the green bit that's in front of you. And whilst there's a backdrop, all that means as well is that you're trying harder to communicate because you can't hear each other because of the wall of sound. But not having a crowd there doesn't stop you playing. It just makes the circumstances of preparing when you're warming up and there's nobody shouting and there's nobody cheering. And I think what's going to be interesting with this Wembley is we've got two coaches. I think we said this when we knew who was going to be in the final, that will make it a sense of occasion. They both appreciate and understand exactly what this competition means, not only to them and their players, but to the clubs that they represent. So for Salford, it's building on the back of a grand final. It's, a whole generation of fans, even if they're sitting at home, have not seen us in this position before. It's a lot of players who are going out there with a point to prove. They've got a lot of experience, and there's some real internationals in that lineup as well. But generally, they tend to be players that have been let go by other clubs because they thought that perhaps the job that they could do was ended. So they've got that. Whereas Leeds have got this. We know the history of the club. We know that what's expected of the club. We know where the club's been in a very recent past, and we know where we're trying to get it to now. And I think both of those coaches have been absolutely front and centre in taking them to where they are this weekend, and they will get that over to their players, and they'll respect that. And that's important because they'll both say to their teams from again what we can gather is that this could be the only time that this final is played in these circumstances. So these 34 players are losing something, but they're also gaining something. They are going to be the only ones that will ever have experienced a cup final played in this manner. So it's still a cup final, but they're actually in a very privileged position rather than it being something they should be bemoaning that they haven't got. What will be really interesting is that it's a very wide pitch. It's an energy sapping pitch. And I think the tactics are going to be absolutely vital as to how you cope with all of that. And for the first time for a long time, I think Salford have got a little bit more experience of players that have played in a big game in that stadium than Leeds have.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah.
it's a really intriguing, exciting final that's got lots of stories and even tactical things attached to it. And I think it's the one that the game needs and wants at the moment. If the BBC are giving us 4.5 hours on primetime television, which includes the build-up, the game itself, they're giving a proper analysis afterwards. It's not, here's the cup now, final score, thank you very much. Then I think we've got potentially the right game to get a lot of people talking about rugby league.
Yeah, it's gonna be different, but I think being different makes it more unique as well, doesn't it? Because we have got that as as spectators to look forward to. So yeah, it's gonna be so interesting. But I see what I was thinking about, that Salford thing and the amount of players that Salford have got now that are not used to it but have experience in it. Because I think Leeds have got quite a few young players that haven't been in finals or haven't even got close to them in recent years. So is that going to play a big part, or is not having the crowds going to not affect it as much? How does it work? Interesting. It will be interesting.
I think everyone's looking forward to this. And where do you see the key battles on the pitch being then?
Kevin Brown, Gale.
Yeah, I was about to say the halves. Because I think last time we saw Luke Gale in a final, he would really admit himself he probably wasn't on form. Whereas now I think he's playing brilliantly. Like you say, Kev Brown, there's, an abundance of talent that have, like you said before, switched clubs and maybe not been wanting elsewhere and now in a final. So I think the halves will be a really good showdown.
I think Joey Lussick and Cruz Leeman again will be a really interesting battle. Lussick is everything. I think it's written in his contract, I will be going for a dart for the line from close in at some point in the game.
Yeah.
You must allow me to do that. And more times than not, it's at a very crucial point in the game. He scores a try and it's won it for them on a lot of occasions. He is such a hard-working guy, and you cannot take your eye off him for a moment, because you know what he's going to do, but knowing that somebody's going to do it and stopping him doing it are two different things. And I think Lehman's, again, very early in his career at a new club and didn't have a pre-season, but he's having a greater influence on the team now that he's sort of getting to know the guys around him. So a lot of focus will be on Lola here and Louis and obviously their swap, and but I do think that how they get the ball and where on the field they get the ball will determine how effective they are, and that will be down to the hookers and the halfback. And then the really interesting battle, I think, up front is you've got the gnarled experience of a Lee Mossop and a Gil Dodson, and the raw power of a Mikolaj Oledzki. And I think, again, that's going to be just a really interesting battle as to who comes out on top of that.